Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing.
With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good evening. This is Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie, on the show tonight.
They invented free speech, sent it back to our country. There's so much wrong with that country, and it is not worthy of making fun of. And in Britain, they are defeated at the soul.
That was free speech under attack. That's according to US firebrand and close friend of Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk. He was on a whistle-stop tour of the UK this week, of course visiting GB News, and debated students at a couple of universities.
I'm sorry, our two countries are the two least racist countries ever to exist in the history of the world,
And who can blame him when that was a reaction to reasonable claims like that? Also tonight, Donald Trump sends his team to the UK over fears free speech is being erased. See that Charlie wasn't lying. What is blood libel and why has the mainstream media been spreading it? Find out later. And why it's okay to support a terrorist organisation, but not okay to make fun of them. And we've got some comedians answering some crazy culture developments from a live studio audience. But first, the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Josh. Good evening to you. Our top stories. A mother and 3 of her children who died in a house fire in northwest London have been named by police. Nusrat Usman, her 15-year-old daughter Mariam and her sons Musa and Rais, who were 8 and 4 respectively, died at the scene of the blaze, which gutted 2 terraced homes in Stonebridge in the early hours of Saturday. A 13-year-old girl remains in a critical condition. A 41-year-old man arrested at the scene has been bailed and then subsequently detained under the Mental Health Act. The Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner says the government is considering scrapping the 2-child benefit cap. It follows a report in The Observer claiming Sir Keir Starmer is in favour of abolishing the limit, despite last year's pledge to keep it. The Prime Minister is under pressure from within his party to change course on benefits and to restore pensioners' winter fuel payments. It comes amid reports that Reform UK and Nigel Farage are planning to commit to changing both policies if they get into government. The Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has called for the immediate restoration of the winter fuel allowance and says the 2-child benefit cap should stay. Sir Alan Bates has accused the government of presiding over a post office scandal compensation scheme that is shortchanging victims. Writing in the Sunday Times, the former sub-postmaster says ministers are responsible for a quasi-kangaroo court system and of altering the goalposts on their judgments. Mr Bates says he's been offered a take-it-or-leave-it offer of compensation amounting to less than half of his claim. 900 sub-postmasters were wrongly prosecuted between 1999 and 2015 after faulty accounting software made it look as if money was missing from their accounts. 3 children from the same family are among at least 12 people killed across Ukraine after Russia launched its largest aerial attack since the beginning of the war. Ukrainian authorities say Russia fired 367 drones and missiles overnight, hitting Kyiv and more than 30 towns and villages, leading to fatalities and dozens of injuries. Mykolaiv and Odessa in the south were hit, as well as Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. Volodymyr Zelensky has again called for allies to exert more pressure on Russia, saying America's silence and the silence of others in the world only encourages Vladimir Putin. It comes as the final prisoner exchange between the countries has now been completed, with 303 soldiers on each side returning home, bringing the total over the 3 days to 1,000 prisoners each. And tributes are being paid to Alan Yentob, the BBC Arts broadcaster who's died at the age of 78. Yentob joined the BBC as a trainee in 1968 and went on to hold a number of executive positions. He was credited with the revival of BBC Two, commissioning Absolutely Fabulous and Have I Got News for You. Dawn French, star of Ab Fab, has described him as a tip-top chap. Comedian David Baddiel, often mistaken for Yentob, has called him the king of TV. There's your headlines. I'll be back with more in an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics, delivering a dose of common sense to that which has become senseless. Coming up on the show tonight, Donald Trump sends his team to the UK over fears free speech is being erased after an explosive visit from US political commentator Charlie Kirk. After an apology from Northumbria Police over a hate crime probe, Lindsay Smith is now challenging their support for Northern Pride, claiming it's become political. Lindsay joins me shortly. The BBC was forced to correct a major claim on Radio 4 after a UN chief's warning about 14,000 baby deaths in Gaza turned out to be wrong. What really happened and what were the real-world ramifications? And, of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. Hello, studio audience. You well? Look at you here, packed out on a Sunday. Well, I look forward to talking to you guys in a second. First of all, we're going to talk about Charlie Kirk. He's been visiting the UK and he has not been impressed. For those who don't know him, he's an American conservative who goes around the US debating students on every issue possible, from abortion to DEI to Trump. In fact, such is his monumental following and influence, he has been credited with helping Donald Trump enter the White House for a second time. This week, he visited GBNews for a sit-down interview with Ben Leo and debated UK students at Oxford and Cambridge, and he wasn't impressed. In fact, upon his return to the US, he said, "If you want to renew your love of America, spend 3 days in the UK. You will kiss the ground when you get back home." So let's take a listen to some of the highlights from his debates that may have led him coming to this conclusion.
I'm sorry, our two countries are the two least racist countries ever to exist in the history of the world, and
you promised to put America first. Haven't you and your ilk sold America out?
Donald Trump is convening a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Joe Biden gave them armaments.
That's going well, isn't it? It's going well.
Can you not interrupt me?
Well.
I allowed you to talk uninterrupted. Do you think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labour in homes that is structured around outdated expectations.
That last person in the debate was my wife, actually. So, joining me now to discuss Charlie Kirk's positions, whether he's right that the UK has fallen, and even the state of debate in universities, please welcome Oxford University students Daniel Ogolama and Anya Trofimova. Hello, welcome. Look at these guys. I don't remember, when I was at university, I don't remember everyone being so as well-dressed and handsome as you two. Things have changed. So welcome. First things first, Daniel, were you aware before he visited of Charlie Kirk and what he does?
Yes, I was aware of Charlie Kirk before he visited, definitely. And when they said that he was going to be debating about Trump, I decided to go on the opposition and debate alongside him.
Cool. Was he nice?
He's a nice chap.
He's a good guy. And what about yourself, Annie? Have you seen his clips online on social media?
Yes, absolutely. So I was one of the people bringing Charlie Kirk to Oxford as Vice President of the Oxford Union. So I'm responsible for individual speaker invitations, and it was wonderful to have him and to be able to debate against him in the debate as well. OK, well, let's talk about that. So do you agree with his position? Now, we saw a few clips there. There's a lot we could get into. Generally, do you follow his politics or not? I don't personally align with Charlie Kirk's politics. That's not to say that I think there isn't an important conversation to be had. And inviting him to the Oxford Union was obviously part of that conversation, part of an effort to platform real engagement with free speech. Mm-hmm. It's something that is, I think, at the core of our society and of our university as well. And as someone who has a background in competitive debating, I can only see that there's immense educational and political value in being able to debate such people at such a young age, you know, in university, and be able to learn from that experience as well.
Fair enough. Daniel, did you find do you think most students would agree with that? Because that seems like a very reasonable position. We're here, we're on a TV show called Free Speech Nation. I think we all kind of agree with that sentiment. But do you think that that's the reality amongst students today in the UK?
Not necessarily. I think it's becoming very unpopular to have conservative views, especially amongst university students. At places like Oxford and Cambridge, for example, I mean, students are turning quads into pro-Palestine protests, and they're, you know, forcing the universities to cut their financial ties with Israel. I mean, if you're a person who has conservative views and you are maybe, you're going to be afraid of kind of pushing those values out there and pushing those views out there. So I don't think that there is enough opportunity for people to have free speech and open debate. I think actually university students are being kind of forced into siding with liberal left views.
Do you think there's truth to that? That seems to be what the impression is. I mean, obviously you have your society and that you're in that world, but do you see that there is this kind of censorship, this need of to conform amongst other students?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in every educational space there is going to be social pressure, especially during sort of the formative years when maybe people haven't quite solidified in their political beliefs or in their views. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think an awareness of social repercussions of things that can be said is something that is important. It's part of a learning process, and it's an important part of the university's culture as well. I don't think that there has been too much restriction of free speech at Oxford, so I'm very lucky to be part of that society.
OK, well, talking about the actual debating itself, did anyone, because you were up there, you were standing alongside him, did anyone ever come up to you afterwards and say, you know what, you actually changed my mind?
100%. I mean, I think there was about over 400 people in the chamber at the time. And, of course, the proposition won, 252, but the opposition got 92 votes. And I think me and Charlie were standing in the Gladstone room after the debate, and we said, wow, we actually turned a lot of people's perspectives through our propositions. And, yeah, I think it was quite interesting to see a lot of people come up to me after and say, look, amazing speech, you really done well, and I've changed my perspective.
What, do you think that Charlie Kirk and it has techniques that he uses? Do you see? I mean, I watched a lot of his clips online, and he seems to be a very good communicator. Also, he seems to know a lot of stuff. That helps.
I definitely can't deny. I think he's a great public speaker. He's very good at capturing the audience, captivating their attention, and that is quite rare for someone that is able to engage a popular audience in something that could be considered high politics or inaccessible to people. At the same time, I also think he's probably very educated and able to engage with the recent headlines. But I do think a lot of his language is very sensational. It sort of potentially is a dog whistle to specific audiences. And that in itself is a little worrying to me.
OK, well, let's talk about some of that language. He's talked about getting back to America and kissing the ground. Do you think that's hyperbole? Do you think that the UK is really that bad? I don't. No. I think we've got problems, but I'm very proud of being British, and I think that we have a lot going for us. I just think we need to do a bit of tweaking.
I think that's a bit extreme to say, getting back to the US, I'll kiss the ground and it's better than the UK and so on and so forth. I do get where he's coming from, though. I do get the sense that conservatism in the UK is like it's being witch hunted. It's not acceptable in most communities, and I think the media aren't doing a good job in helping people with conservative views within the UK promote their beliefs. So I do get why he would go back to the US and kind of say, look, UK is a hellhole. And I saw his TikTok where he put out a lot of images of protests and people being violent on the streets and things like that, and most of them are left-wing leaning, so I get why he would say that.
Did you get any stick for hosting him? Did anybody come up to you and say, you shouldn't be putting this guy out there?
Yeah, I think there's always a sense that, particularly controversial speakers or people that have, divisive views should not be platformed. But we are very kind of adamant that we, as a free speech society, we should be platforming these views and at least engaging with them and in constructive debate, because there's a lot to be learned from that.
Yeah, I don't know whether the situation is getting better or worse on the ground. I'm not in universities. My children are too young to go there. Do you think that there is still a very captured generation of yours? Is there a way out of it? Do you think they will change their mind on certain views?
I think it's going to be quite difficult. And, I mean, student perspectives are shaped by global and societal issues, yes. But I do think that perspectives are shaped by lecturers as well. And lecturers, I mean, the Telegraph put out a report saying that 8 out of 10 British lecturers are left-wing. And, of course, the Adam Smith Institute put out a report as well that says people who do pursue a career in academia have traits that are synonymous with creativity, curiosity, and they're open to experiences, which is what people who have left-leaning views naturally have. So these are people who are tutoring and speaking to students every single week. At Oxford and Cambridge, you have the tutorial system, where you submit an essay and you sit down with a tutor for 1 or 2 hours every single week. So imagine tens of hours for your 3-year degree, having a one-on-one with a left-wing tutor. Essentially, your views are going to be changed. And that's, I think, what's happening. So I think we're in trouble in terms of university students.
Do you agree with that? Do you think that there is this kind of mono perspective coming sort of on a top-down route to students?
Yeah, I completely empathise with what you've said about there being like the views of university students being dictated by the culture that they're in. I wouldn't say that there is a specific lean towards left-wing views or that is disproportionate or perhaps damaging. In fact, I think, I've been in a very lucky position of all of the tutors that I've had have been not only incredible academics, but very willing to be challenged on their views and very willing to challenge me on my views as well. That's something that has not only cemented my educational progress, but I think it's also something that has given me the confidence to be able to speak against people that I disagree with, but also to find areas of similarity. And I think it's ultimately that conversation, that productive sort of understanding that you can have across differences that is really built up at the university level, and that goes for both lecturers and for students.
I mean, I agree with you with everything you're saying. I agree that that's the ideal. I just wonder if that's where we're really at. I think if you were to go in and start arguing with a tutor or a lecturer that you think that there are only two sexes, whether they're necessarily going to be amicable with you, whether you're even going to be feel safe to be able to express those kind of views.
Well, I had the privilege of debating my tutor in the Charlie Kirk debate. She was on the same bench as me, but I think that's an incredible opportunity to be able to, sit side by side with your tutors, discuss issues that are some of the most pressing issues of our day. And I would say that ultimately Oxford or, these educational institutions we're so lucky to be part of give us the confidence to stand up for our beliefs, no matter whether or not our tutors agree with them or disagree with them.
Fair enough. Daniel, did you feel the confidence from performing? Is that what you got, being able to be out there and debating your position? Did it help you, do you think?
Certainly. Again, the Oxford Union is a bastion of free speech, and it is a place where you feel safe to have your views, of course with a lot of security outside. But yes, I did feel safe, and I was happy with the result and happy at the fact that people were able to say, look, I've changed my mind. Well done.
Fair enough. Well, look, one day I imagine both of you will be running the country, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So thank you very much. Please build a round of applause. Oxford University students Daniel, Rama and Anya Chopra-Mova. So next on Free Speech Nation, my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. You don't want to miss it. Back in a moment.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My comedian guests this evening are Cresta Wetton and Steve N. Allen. Here they are. Did you guys see those students?
Yes.
They were
what fine young people.
They were. They were so sort of well-dressed and handsome and clever.
You think what? As I came in, I heard the audience say, what did you say? You've got faith in...
It does give you
faith in humanity.
Trust me, if you'd seen me 30 years ago, it would not give you any faith whatsoever. I just, God, I miss hair. So, let's have a look at what questions we have. We're going to get some, our first one's from Nigel, actually. Nigel, hello.
Yeah, thank you. My question is, can Enoch Powell help your business?
Can Enoch Powell help your business? So, actually, stick on to that, Nigel. I want to speak to you in a second. Sorry. Police are investigating a village shop in Shropshire as a hate incident following a complaint about offensive content after it displayed a framed photo of Enoch Powell alongside a passage from his 1968 Rivers of Blood speech. The shopkeeper, Elizabeth Griffiths, said the display was meant to highlight the need for strong leadership. So, Nigel, obviously you're not afraid of any ghost, so... It's OK, fine. This reference was just for me. What do you think? Would that help you buy products?
But probably wouldn't affect me, but I think it can be misconstrued.
Yes.
Generally.
Well, I think can it be that's a good question. Is there misconstruing going on here, or is there very construing?
Actual construing?
Yeah.
Yeah, there probably is actual construing. I think they probably got the message. Yeah. But it's not illegal to put that message. It's one of those...
Well, is it?
Well, that's the thing.
Hate crime.
The message itself is not one I would agree with, but... If you start to ban photos, there's your slippery slope problems. Like, you can't have a picture of him. Next thing, you can't have a picture of, certainly, Nigel Farage. You wouldn't be able to load pictures of him.
Well, there were words as well, Steve.
Words.
And you know how dangerous words are nowadays.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think about this, Chris?
Well, I think Ms. Griffiths, the lady whose shop it is, I think she feels it has helped her business. But you've got to admit, the people who weren't enjoying the poster won't have gone in, so she may have missed some other business we don't know about.
Fair enough, right.
It might be exactly the kind of filtering she wanted, though. Do you know what I mean?
I believe it's an ironmonger's. Is that right? Yes. If you were going to display a photo of, I imagine it would be an ironmonger's.
It's a very progressive industry, I'll have you know.
Oh, OK, I stand corrected.
You'd have a picture of Thatcher. It's on brand. Iron Lady. Bish, bash, bosh. You know what you're doing.
There we go. Right. So our next question's from Jonathan.
Hello. Are anti-racist racist?
Yes, are anti-racist racist? So, a training session on addressing Islamophobia in mental health was cancelled by the psychotherapy body after complaints that 3 academic speakers had shared anti-Semitic content on social media. The posts in question including comparisons of Israel to a Nazi state and references to a Zionism problem in healthcare. So, sorry, I'll give you back. So, are you familiar with the story at all?
Yes, I actually read about it today.
Yes. What do you think about it? There's obviously, it's always the hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, anti-racists have their approved groups, and that's it. If you're not part of that group, then, yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. So they were teaching a group, I understand it was meant to be a seminar on Islamophobia, which is a very problematic term in and of itself. I would say anti-Muslim hatred is real, but the term Islamophobia brings issues in terms of criticising of Islam, which is an ideology. That's a different debate here. But when the people themselves have these racist positions, arguably racist positions, I certainly was reading, and those examples there were minor to what I read. And as a Jew, I was like, yeah, that ain't good.
You're Jewish.
It's been said.
Really? I really should pay more attention, shouldn't I? No, so obviously I'm from the north, so anti-racist is what we used to call my dad's sister who had a problem with the French. But it's almost I wanted to say the answer from the one before. There are some things where you can disagree with someone, but do you want it to be like an illegal thing to hold that view? In some ways, a qualification for being really good at teaching Islamophobia issues would be to be a big old anti-Semite.
Well, but it's not about being illegal. It's like you are there to teach people supposedly about racism whilst you have allegedly espoused racist views.
Well, I think you nailed it at the beginning. It's a specific area of racism, isn't it, that they were particularly concerned about?
Yes. Well, it should be said they were contacted for comment and they did not.
Well, they wouldn't reply to you.
No. You know, well, the problem is, my email, josh@bigbagel. That's probably what gave it away. Our next question is from Anton.
Should Gary Neville be given the red card?
Ooh, well done. Yes, should Gary Neville be given the red card? So Nottingham Forest have banned Gary Neville from their final game against Chelsea, claiming his commentary has shown a biased and unfairly critical attitude towards the club. So, Anton, are you a Forest fan?
I'm a Chelsea fan.
OK, I'm sorry. What do you think about this? I mean, this is what people say. They go, it's a free speech issue. I don't think this is a free speech issue. He has the right to say that and criticise them. I don't, and they have a right to say, you know what? I'm just thinking of the comedy critic that I have banned from one of my gigs.
Fair enough. No, with this, like, my answer to story one was you can disagree with someone and still think they've got the right to say it. My answer to story two was you can disagree with someone and still think they've got the right to have a job. This one, I am from Nottinghamshire, so I think it should be banned. It's not right. Yeah, I disagree with what he says, and he should not be allowed to say it out loud, judging the owner of Nottingham Forest. So, no, I think he should be... Was shot an option? I'm not sure. Is that one of the things we can do? No.
Watch out, we're going to get the police here. What do you think?
Well, I'm stunned because I've discovered that in sport people have allegiances to specific teams. I thought everyone got along.
Do you think that he should be banned from the stadium? Do you think it's a free speech issue, as some people are saying?
Well, I can hear Lewis Schaefer in my mind say, why can't they ban him? It's up to them, isn't it? As they've said, they can let in whoever they like. I certainly don't think it's a legal issue.
No.
They could definitely ban him, but we should be allowed to sit around and say that is a pathetic move. Oh, he said something you didn't like and you banned him.
Well, that's the way it works, exactly.
Yeah.
And you are not allowed into the stadium anymore. Right. So, our final question for the moment is from Chris.
So, is girl power dead?
Is girl power dead? Yes. Jerry, is it Horner?
I think it was Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
She'll always be Ginger Spice to me.
Right.
Of course, we're not allowed to say Ginger. Are we allowed to say Spice still? I don't know. All right. She has gone gender neutral. She had declared the end of the Spice Girls slogan. This is a sad day for our Spice Girl fans.
Well, I don't think girl power is dead.
Oh!
I think she's wrong.
Spoken like someone with real girl power there.
I have no comment on that whatsoever. But,
well, I mean, she's sort of saying now, she's saying, no, replace it with inner power. We've all got inner power now, and it doesn't matter what gender you are. Is this her being 5 years too late? Is she not watching Free Speech Nation
no,
enough?
It's more than 5 years too late, because I don't know why the Daily Mail's upset about this. Like, oh, it's a big issue. It's from the 90s. It's the same issue as, like, were Rachel and Ross on a break? Oh, my days, how will we find out? Saying that it's... She's not really gone gender neutral. She's trying to include... It's not about trying to include that 0.02% of trans people. It's also including the 49% of dudes, isn't it? Is that
what she's saying? But she always had us.
Definitely not about ticket sales for the upcoming reunion tour.
Available now.
About
I mean,
that.
Cresta, I know that you're a big fan of non-binary power.
I'm just so sad to see one of the great feminists fall. You know, 'cause I remember reading Camille Parlier and Germaine Greer and Jerry Halliwell when I was younger, and looking at that Union Jack dress and her pants, and thinking that she really stood for me and all the power I wanted to achieve. So I'm disappointed.
Well, you know what? I've always stood for her.
I remember that dress, and I remember Googling what makes things go half-mast, but there was no events that would make that happen. It's a shame.
Next on Free Speech Nation, the BBC forced to correct a major claim on Radio 4 that spread around the world after a UN's chief's warning about 14,000 baby deaths in Gaza in 48 hours turned out to be, surprise, surprise, wrong. What really happened? See you in a minute.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Looking further afield, there's plenty of sunshine on offer, and it's going to be feeling warm too across Europe with a few showers around. Now, it is going to be breezy across Madeira and the Canary Islands and running down the coast of Portugal, but otherwise plenty of fine and settled and warm weather around. There'll be a few showers, especially out towards the east, but otherwise temperatures ranging to the mid to high 20s, and that's similar throughout much of the week. Plenty of sunshine on offer, highs of 27.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we'll see rather unsettled weather across the UK. All of us seeing some outbreaks of rain at times, quite blustery winds at times too. Low pressure sitting towards the north and northeast of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery winds. All our weather moving in from the west at the moment. And as we head into the evening and through the overnight period, certainly see quite a few showers moving in from the west across northern and western parts of Scotland into Northern Ireland and the northwest of England. The best of the clear spells tonight towards the south and east of the UK, and it's across the south where we see temperatures holding up fairly well, generally in the high single figures, whereas towards the north of the UK, certainly in rural spots, dipping low enough in rural areas for a touch of frost by Monday morning. As for Monday morning, a bank holiday, of course, there'll be plenty of fine weather towards the south and east of the UK to start with, whereas towards the north, quite a few showers coming in across the north and west of Scotland. So at this stage of the day, it's the northeast of Scotland seeing the best of the bright weather. For Northern Ireland, a bit of an east-west split first thing. Showers out towards the west, some sunshine towards the east. A few showers out across northern and western parts of England and into parts of Wales too. So it's towards the southeast, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll see the best of the early sunshine. As we go through the day, showers will start to break out more widely from the west. I think the south and east generally seeing the fewest in the way of showers, whereas out towards the west, those showers will tend to merge, especially as we go into the afternoon to give some more persistent outbreaks of rain. Quite blustery winds once again, still a chance of local gales up towards the far north of the UK, and temperatures a little bit on the cool side, certainly towards the north and west, the low to mid-teens at best, perhaps peaking at 17 or 18 Celsius down towards the southeast, 18 is 64 in Fahrenheit. As we go into Tuesday, it's a quieter start to the day, plenty of sunshine, just one or two showers around, but notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the west and southwest as we go through the day, some of that turning quite heavy as we head into the afternoon, particularly out towards the west and southwest. It stays unsettled for the rest of the week, further rain to come at times. Where the sun comes through though, temperatures not doing too badly, peaking in the high teens to low 20s Celsius.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The BBC were forced to correct a claim about babies dying in Gaza made on their Radio 4's Today programme earlier this week. UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher claimed on the show that 14,000 babies will die in Gaza in 48 hours if humanitarian aid did not reach the Strip. But it was later corrected, and this figure instead referred to children at risk of severe malnutrition between April 2025 and March 2026. Mr. Fletcher's comments were repeated across global media channels, and he was cited in the House of Commons by 13 MPs during a debate on Tuesday. The next day, 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington were murdered attending a humanitarian event at the Jewish Museum by a man shouting, "Free Palestine." Joining me now to discuss the connection is broadcaster and journalist Jonathan Sacher-Doty. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Jonathan, you wrote a piece this week that I think resonated with many Jewish people, not just in the UK, but across the West. Would you mind just telling us the basic arguments of it?
Sure. I think that what we saw this week with that ridiculous claim of 14,000 babies dying in the next 2 days if something didn't happen, that alone should have collapsed under the weight of its own absurdity as a statistic. Coming from the UN, people treated it like it was gospel, and of course they had to roll it back. It was in fact meant to be covering a year. It was also from a body that's made mistakes in the past.
Well, can I just say something? They put out these claims before, over the last few years, and they've always turned out to be just lies.
Exactly. And so I think that given the where this claim came from in the first place, we should have had some doubt. But of course, many in the media didn't. And as you said, in Parliament, it was mentioned 13 times, I think, in the Commons during the debate. We heard David Lammy introduce new policies towards Israel, suspending talks for a trade deal with Israel, which had been ongoing. And he said that that was because of Israel's actions. So really, this sort of false claim has been absorbed and taken on by so many people because they've been primed to believe these dreadful, sinister things about Israel, the Jewish state. The idea that Jews kill babies, that this is something that they're doing through some sort of bloodlust, is, I think, something which dates back hundreds or thousands of years. And that is why it's so depressing to see that even in our modern era, people are spreading lies like this, and it's then having this knock-on effect. It's having this influence that means that apparently ordinary people, like this man in Washington, D.C., who shot 2 people coming out of the Jewish museum there, they probably believe they're doing something akin to shooting Nazis, something akin to getting rid of the world's most evil people, because there's this sort of agenda that's going on where lies are told, they're spread, they're believed credulously by politicians, the media, and therefore people on the street. And it's a perfect storm. It means that right now, Jewish people around this country and around the world are feeling incredibly afraid for their futures. They're feeling that the society around them has really got this animosity that's coming to the surface. It's unveiled, unbridled now, to the extent that people really feel they need to keep their heads down, just keep quiet, just keep ploughing through. And to be specific about what that means, many Jewish people, I mean, I'm sure contact you as they do me, and they say that their children in schools are being bullied with anti-Semitic abuse, and the school isn't doing anything about it. I know several parents who've had to take their children out of schools because of this sort of problem. Another couple of parents that I spoke to recently said on their school's Culture Day, when children are encouraged to come in dressed in a way that reflects their background and culture, their heritage, they were terrified to put their child in any kind of clothing that would indicate they were Jewish because of the treatment they knew they would get in the school. And all of these sorts of small, apparently intangible things actually all add up for Jewish people to the extent that they're really quite afraid now.
Well, this is it. It feels like this week was the crossing of the Rubicon of Jew hate. And it feels like Jewish people have been saying for a while now, certainly since the reaction to October 7th, and seeing the reaction from the progressive left, I guess you could call them, and they had the justification of the murder of Jews. It feels like this has spread into the West now in a very real way. This rhetoric that we've seen on these, and they're hate marches, and they hide behind this kind of, oh no, we're just calling for peace and, globalise the Intifada. And Jews have said, no, this is what the assassination of 2 Jews outside of a humanitarian event is exactly that. That is the globalisation of the Intifada. And I feel that there's For personally, there's just a frustration and an anger now, because it's like we've been saying this the whole time and people haven't been paying attention.
Well, unfortunately, I think that the Jewish experience throughout history has been one of being very aware, looking out for persecution and discrimination against us. And
this is a couple, by the way, who were murdered this week.
Absolutely. And I mean, really murdered because of their association with Israel as they came out of a Jewish museum in the capital city of the free world.
Ironically, to raise money for humanitarian aid into Gaza.
And I think that what I was trying to say in my column this week was that we always say never again about what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust, during Nazi Germany. And yet people seem to say every time Jews collectively point out that something is going very wrong in society's treatment of them, that no, they're exaggerating. This isn't as bad as 1930s Germany. Of course it isn't. The point is that the Holocaust didn't start with the gas chambers. It started with society not admitting Jews into shops, something we've seen now, Zionists. We've seen that it involved society with ordinary people turning against their neighbours, those who they would once have walked past in the street with no problems. They would report on them, they would persecute them themselves. And more with these examples, like those I gave about the school, or a man who woke up in hospital, a patient, to find Palestine stickers around his bed, unsure whether they were there to single him out to other staff in the room as a Jew. These sorts of little things are really what gets the hair up on the back of our necks, because we're a people who've been through this before collectively, and we're very aware of what it looks like when society starts not only to turn on us, but other parts of society start to tolerate it, to keep quiet. So really what I was hoping was to raise awareness, not just among Jewish people, but among the wider public, so that people can actually stand up against this. It feels very uncomfortable for us Brits to speak out when something's going on around us in public or in society, but I think it's essential, because what tragically happened with that killing in the States is really, I'm afraid, the sort of thing that we fear seeing more of if this is just left unchecked.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, journalist Jonathan Sacerdotti. Next on Free Speech Nation, after an apology from Northumbria Police over a hate crime probe, Lindsay Smith is now challenging their support for Northern Pride, claiming it's become political. Lindsay joins me next. And let's just have a bit of a round of applause for Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So back in March, on this show, we heard that Northumbria Police apologised to Lindsay Smith for their hate crime investigation into her gender-critical social media posts. Well, Lindsay is now bringing a case against the Chief Constable of Northumbria Police, challenging her decision to authorise the force to participate in Northern Pride. Ms Smith argues that Pride is now political and that Northern Pride does not welcome groups that represent only lesbians or gay gender-conforming individuals. On Friday, the High Court granted permission for a full trial to go ahead, which is set to take place in July, just before the next Northern Pride. I'm joined now by Lindsay's lawyer, Paul Conraith. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, is this the first Pride being taken to court?
As far as I'm aware, yes. I mean, it's a test case.
OK.
And we're testing really this. Are the police acting impartially by attending Pride in uniform, with holding rainbow flags, wearing rainbow lanyards, driving rainbow police cars, having rainbow police vans? Does this show impartiality? And so that's the question for the court to grapple with.
Interesting, because the other issue, of course, is this a good use of police time, police resources, our money?
Well,
that's
yes.
not a legal issue.
That's not a legal issue. The legal issue here is that the police are under a statutory duty of impartiality. And so it would appear to us, and I think it would appear to many people, that by having a rainbow flag, holding it, and wearing a rainbow lanyard, driving a rainbow police car, you are not being impartial.
What do you think the message is that they're sending out by doing all of that, then?
They're saying that they are... The impression that I would gain, and I think most people would gain, is that they're siding with one side in a very contested societal legal debate. The issue of the participation of trans people within, for example, natal men participating in female sport, accessing female-only spaces, the medicalisation of children with gender dysphoria. So these kind of issues are hotly debated. And by the police identifying, having a rainbow flag or a progress flag, it would appear to people that they are siding with one side in this debate.
So it's not an issue of saying, oh, we're going to this event because we want to say gay people are great and we love them.
Well, it's fine for the police to be able to express their support in other ways, but when they are policing in a public way, they have to demonstrate impartiality.
Yeah, and so the issue seems to be more also that we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community, or the umbrella, which is the Progress Pride flag, which is different, which includes very much that ideology, because there's, I know many gay men and lesbians and bisexuals who don't consider themselves as, being homosexual being an inherent characteristic to be part of the TQ+. That's the gender ideology element, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, the particular issue here is that my client, who you'll hear from in a moment, Lindsay Smith, is a gender-critical lesbian. So she has concerns about the whole transgender issue, concerns, as I was saying earlier, about participation in female sport and access to female-only spaces. Those issues are a real concern to her, and she wants to be able to express that. And the police, of course, are the coercive arm of the state. They can charge you, Public Order Act offences, for malicious communications. You can get a non-crime hate incident recorded against you, a police record. And so if you know that the police have sided with one side on this issue, you'd be much more fearful of expressing your views.
So are there previous indications of the Chief Constable, of their stance on the LGBT community? Is this a sort of a top-down initiative?
Well, the Chief Constable for Northumbria Police is the national lead for the LGBT Police Chiefs Association. So she has a particular national responsibility on this issue and has expressed her support very publicly for that community. And, of course, the police have to work with all different members of the community. But when they are publicly policing, they should be very clearly impartial.
Fair enough. And do you think that this case has I mean, I imagine you wouldn't have started it if you didn't think it was winnable.
Yeah, well, we've been granted permission by the High Court on all grounds. And the High Court, what happens with these type of cases, you can't immediately go through to trial. The case has to be vetted by a High Court judge. And that judge has to determine, is it arguable here that there's been unlawfulness on behalf of the police? And this judge does believe that.
OK, well, if you wouldn't mind waiting here for a second, let's have a little chat to Lindsay now. Lindsay, are you there? Lindsay.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Hello,
psychically, there he
hello.
is. Hello, Lindsay Smith. Let's give a round of applause to Lindsay Smith. Lovely to see you again, Lindsay. So, Lindsay, what gave you the inspiration to do this, then?
Well, it was more really like when everything kicked off with me with the football club, and I got in touch with Harry Miller, and that obviously Harry tried to help me out initially, got in touch with the police when they invited me in for interview under caution and made it clear that he couldn't see anything unlawful in anything I'd said. Told them to pretty much leave me alone. If they wanted to interview me, they could do it at a time of my choosing with him present. And they just decided to come to my door that night and try and coerce their way into my house to do the interview there and then.
And you believe that was ideologically driven rather than the law? Well, obviously, you got an apology for it.
Yeah, well, like I say, it was, the things I was questioned over by the police were posts like, why do I have a lawful reason for having #LGB in my bio? Do I have do I have a lawful reason for I was even asked if I even had a lawful reason for using the social media platform as a whole, so the officer that was doing the interview, he was reading off of like a spreadsheet, but the way the questions are worded and the way they're put across to you is very coercive, and it makes you believe that you've done something wrong when actually there's no basis for them to be doing it at all, to be honest.
So is part of the reason you're taking this case on is because you're hoping that it will be almost a lesson to the police in terms of pointing out how ideologically captured they are, so that a situation like what you went through wouldn't happen again?
Well, yeah, because I think there's the phrase goes around, the process is the punishment, and it's almost like they're so ideologically driven with this that the only way they seem to deal with people like me is people who've never broken the law, who don't deal with the police on a daily basis. So it's a terrifying ordeal to go through when you are just a law-abiding member of the community. And you've all of a sudden got them knocking on your door. And it's not like it was a non-crime hate incident. I was accused of a hate crime. Like, that's a serious allegation that if I'd been charged, I could have, it could have ended up in prison. All for, posting things like just your daily reminder, trans women are men.
Well, did you see, I'm assuming you saw what happened at Stroud Pride, where they basically put out a post saying, we don't want LGB views. Essentially saying, we don't want gay people.
You're not welcome.
You're not welcome here if you think there are only two sexes.
There's a similar thing I think's gone up on Northumbria Police website about Pride, and it says like, they want everyone to be happy and feel safe, while understanding that there's a different set of views. Obviously, that's like a little homage to lesbians and gay people like myself who don't believe in the ideology. But then in the next breath, they turn around and say, you're welcome to come if you believe in our cause and you're supportive and things like that. So, in one breath they're saying we'll respect your different views, but in the next breath they're saying, but you're not welcome.
Would you like to go along to Northumbria Pride if there wasn't the police there? Do you think that even look, I'm a lesbian, I'm here, you are meant to be my community?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Pride's gotten a bit silly. I don't think we need a whole month for it, because it doesn't even seem to only last that month. It seems to go on all year round. It's pretty silly. But no, I don't need a month to celebrate who I am. Being a lesbian for me is probably one of the least interesting things about me, to be honest. There's a hell of a lot more about me, and it's just it's just a part of my daily life. So I don't need to go waving a flag, you know, on a Saturday, you know, just to prove that I'm proud of who I am.
Well,
I'm quite proud of myself every day. So.
Fair enough. You're too busy watching football, so fair enough. Well,
yes,
thank you so much.
I have been today, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for coming. And very good luck with your case, Paul. Also, when does the case actually happen? It's July, is that right?
Yeah, we're looking for 9th and 10th of July. OK, wow. So, do you think that it's going to have a larger impact beyond Northumbria? Do you think the police forces will pay attention to this? Because it seems like all the fight back to this ideology has come through the courts. Yes, I mean, this case, we trust is going to say that it's unlawful for the police to have done what they've done.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Paul. We are going to have a reply now from Northumbria Police. They're saying the effect of these events to your personal life is neither disputed nor taken lightly. The investigating officer extends sincere apologies for the situation you found yourself in. You're correct that stating a hypothetical victim and for that offence for which you were interviewed requires a victim. This was obviously from the previous case. So that is the end of the first hour on Free Speech Nation. But don't go away, because there's lots more to come between now and 9 o'clock, including 2 students who took their gender-critical views to the streets. How did their fellow students react? Badly. See you in 2 minutes.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we'll see rather unsettled weather across the UK, all of us seeing some outbreaks of rain at times, quite blustery winds at times too. Low pressure sitting towards the north and northeast of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery winds. So all our weather moving in from the west at the moment. And as we head into the evening and through the overnight period, certainly see quite a few showers moving in from the west, across northern and western parts of Scotland, into Northern Ireland and the northwest of England. The best of the clear spells tonight towards the south and east of the UK, and it's across the south where we see temperatures holding up fairly well, generally in the high single figures, whereas towards the north of the UK, certainly in rural spots, dipping low enough in rural areas for a touch of frost by Monday morning. As for Monday morning, a bank holiday, of course, there'll be plenty of fine weather towards the south and east of the UK to start with, whereas towards the north, quite a few showers coming in across the north and west of Scotland. So at this stage of the day, it's the northeast of Scotland seeing the best of the bright weather. For Northern Ireland, a bit of an east-west split first thing. Showers out towards the west, some sunshine towards the east. A few showers out across northern and western parts of England and into parts of Wales too. So it's towards the southeast, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll see the best of the early sunshine. As we go through the day, showers will start to break out more widely from the west. I think the south and east generally seeing the fewest in the way of showers, whereas out towards the west, those showers will tend to merge, especially as we go into the afternoon to give some more persistent outbreaks of rain. Quite blustery winds once again, still a chance of local gales up towards the far north of the UK, and temperatures a little bit on the cool side, certainly towards the north and west, the low to mid-teens at best, perhaps peaking at 17 or 18 Celsius down towards the southeast. 18 is 64 in Fahrenheit. As we go into Tuesday, it's a quieter start to the day, plenty of sunshine, just 1 or 2 showers around, but notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the west and southwest as we go through the day, some of that turning quite heavy as we head into the afternoon, particularly out towards the west and southwest. It stays unsettled for the rest of the week, further rain to come at times. Where the sun comes through though, temperatures not doing too badly, peaking in the high teens to low 20s Celsius.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps four, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
There is plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including a Jewish man arrested for holding up a placard of a picture of a Hezbollah leader. There we go. Let's get a news update first from Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you. Our headlines. Angela Rayner has ruled out running for leader of the Labour Party, saying she'd never put herself forward to be the Prime Minister. It follows a series of stories suggesting Ms Rayner is challenging Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. Those reports focused on a leaked memo from her department in which the Deputy Prime Minister appeared to be urging the Chancellor for new taxes on the rich and a clampdown on welfare benefit for migrants. Well, speaking to a number of broadcasters earlier, Ms Rayner denied being behind the leak to boost her own credentials, saying she would never run to replace the Prime Minister. She's also revealed the government is considering scrapping the 2-child benefit cap. A mother and 3 of her children who died in a house fire in northwest London have been named by police. Nusrat Usman, her 15-year-old daughter Mariam, and her sons Musa and Rais, who were 8 and 4 respectively, died at the scene of the blaze, which gutted 2 terraced homes in Stonebridge in the early hours of Saturday. 2 other family members were taken to hospital. A woman in her 70s has been released, but a 13-year-old girl remains in critical condition. A 41-year-old man arrested at the scene has been bailed and subsequently detained under the Mental Health Act. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has suggested US silence after recent Russian attacks is encouraging Vladimir Putin. Ukrainian authorities say Russia fired 367 drones and missiles overnight, hitting the capital, Kyiv, and more than 30 towns and villages across the country, leading to dozens of injuries in addition to those fatalities. 3 children from one family are amongst at least 12 people killed across the country after Russia launched its largest aerial attack since the beginning of the war. Chelsea, Manchester City and Newcastle have qualified for next season's Champions League after an entertaining final day of the Premier League season. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City finished 3rd after beating Fulham 2-0 to round off a disappointing campaign on a high. Reece James will captain Chelsea in Europe next season after they won a straight shootout against Nottingham Forest, and Newcastle finished 5th, prompting big celebrations despite losing 1-0 at home to Everton. Liverpool, who won the title weeks ago, well, they got the trophy after a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace. Mo Salah scored the equaliser. He was presented with the Golden Boot Award for the highest score, 29 he got in the Premier League campaign. And Trent Alexander-Arnold said goodbye to Anfield before his move to Real Madrid. Finally, Gary Lineker's preparing to present his final match of the day after 26 years at the BBC. His departure was announced last week after he apologised for sharing a social media post with anti-Semitic connotations. Now, the former England striker will no longer lead the BBC's coverage of the 2026 World Cup or the FA Cup next season, as had previously been announced. It's understood his departure later will be marked by a video montage of his career and tributes from his fellow presenters. That's it. Those are your headlines, and more from me in an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Oh, gosh. Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. I'm so a bit emotional. It's very sad, Gary Lineker. He's gone. OK, so let's have some questions from our audience. Our first question is from Gavan.
Yeah, good evening. My question is, how does it hang? How does it rely on biological sex affect using disabled toilets?
OK, yes. How does recognising biological sex impact disabled toilets? That's because, of course, you're holding in a poo. It's very hard to think, isn't it?
He was.
It's very hard to think.
I was going to poo that.
There we go. We're talking top chops each other.
I tell you, in the green room, there were certain words I was using, which I don't think you can use it before the 9 o'clock watershed.
Please, Gavan, keep it to yourself. Tell me in the break. So, I should say this is disabled rights campaigners have condemned the suggestion that trans people use accessible toilets following a Supreme Court ruling on biological sex, warning it worsens exclusion for both communities and undermines access to already limited and poorly maintained facilities. Cresta, this feels like they were saying two different things in this article.
They were saying they were horrified watching trans people go to the toilet, which I thought was very offensive.
I know, exactly. But it feels like they're saying that trans people are going to be forced to use our toilets and don't use our toilets. Like, we support trans people, but don't use our toilets.
Yes,
that seemed to be the gist.
We can see that you coming and taking our resources is going to be awful for you, so let's campaign together for you not to do that.
Yes, it was definitely some mixed messaging going on.
Yeah, it wasn't even mixed, was it? It was kind of what? Our toilets? No.
Go to women's!
Yeah, we're the one with the special cord. That's what we need. They
They
even
were saying
complain
things
about
like,
the cord.
it's full here, there's no more space, go back to where it was sort of that kind of vibe, I thought.
I mean, we need disabled toilets. When I used to have a job, I used to go and say, I'm going to go do some filing, and then I'd go to sleep in the disabled toilets.
Fair enough. No, they can't sack you for that, I think.
No,
I've not checked.
Absolutely.
There was also a bit in the article that said something like a third of people who identify as trans already qualify for using the disabled toilets.
Well, as they said they qualified, they said they are disabled.
Right.
So that's exactly what I picked on. Now, that seems impossible, that a third of trans people are disabled.
I think this is a third of 1 in 3 LGBTQ plus people.
Yes,
which
OK, fine.
Just doesn't make sense. I believe we currently have 1 in 5 disabled people in the UK. That's the figure. So why are LGBTQ plus people so much more disabled? What's that all about?
That's it. What do you think about this, Math Man?
Math Man would mean it's not going to impact the toilet that much then. These are already people who are heading into that toilet anyway. So there's only 2/3 of an extra increase. You know,
there it is.
It'll be all right. I've done the maths. You'll be fine.
Absolutely destroyed their argument.
Yeah, with maths.
All right. Well, I mean, it is I'd actually be really interested in someone properly looking into this claim. I think it's an outright lie.
I wonder what you're going to say there. No. Set up some cameras in that toilet.
In the disabled toilet. No, because this claim just it seems like one of those things that's just said.
Yeah.
And just feels totally wrong. Now, I think, though, what I have seen from footage I've seen from marches, there's a lot of young people with crutches on. And I think that some people that I've read, whether it's true or not, have sort of said it's because of cross-sex hormones that one of the side effects is brittle bone syndrome and also back issues and stuff. So you actually are seeing an overrepresentation within that environment. That's what I've just seen visually.
Right.
Do you think that there's... Have you ever seen
I
anything
hadn't
like
heard that, but I know that we are being told that all of this hormone therapy will have long-term consequences.
Yes. Right, well, our next question is from David.
Thank you. Josh and panel, thank you. I was very much enjoying last week's Eurovision Song Contest, and the question that's been posed is whether the Israeli space-based laser dolphins were somehow involved in a cheating process associated with the Eurovision Song Contest.
Well, this is it, David. You just cannot trust those space dolphins.
You can't.
Their laser skills are immense.
It's mainly because Israeli tech is so very, very sophisticated and advanced that it can achieve all sorts of extraordinary results.
It's crazy, isn't it? So this is because, yes, Israel's public vote win at the Eurovision has sparked concerns from several countries over the contest's voting system, with broadcasters calling for audits and transparency amid fears of manipulation and questions about the competition's political neutrality. David, if you don't mind, just if I could just get the mic back to you. David, if you don't mind standing up, it feels to me like those claims are actually anti-Semitic.
Well, I can tell you that statistically Israel has won the contest with beautiful songs 4 times in its history, its rich history, that over 10 countries, including the rest of the world, which was widely disseminated, voted maximum points to Israel. So there's a great deal of credibility to the public vote, even before this audit.
OK, thank you, David. Yes, David, I should point out, is my dad. So...
I would like you to have said your brother or even your kid.
David is my great-grandfather. Yeah. So did you see this claim? Because I was there. I was watching it last week. I voted the 20 times. You're allowed to vote the 20 times. That's the point. Everybody's allowed to vote for the country they want 20 times. But people say, oh, no, people voted 20 times. That's the point. It was fair, surely.
Fair, yeah. Well, it's certainly not a conspiracy, not fixed, a flawed system. I mean, so much.
Why is it flawed, though?
Because
everybody has the same chance to vote for the country they want to win.
So it's a song contest, and if you have the ability to vote on one song, you pick your favourite song. But if you could vote 20 times, you could vote for nearly all of the songs. What a pointless system. It's just a way of getting money from the phone lines. How are we not spotting this? That's all it is. And of course, if you can vote... If someone likes a song, they'll vote for the song. If someone's got some other issue that they're very passionate about, they might vote 20 times. So it's a stupid system. It's not rigged. It's not fixed. I'm glad, finally, we now know that the Jewish space laser thing was a nonsense. I'm glad that got brought up. Is it Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because if they were a thing, then the conflict wouldn't have lasted long, would it? You would have heard a zap sound, and that would have been done. So I'm glad we've disproved all of that.
You know, I not appreciate, I'll be familiar with the numbers here, but even with, say, Jewish people, the Jewish people voted 20 times because they wanted Israel to win. You can't vote for the UK or their own countries. But this was actually in countries like Spain, in very other countries that don't have a large Jewish community. There's only 250,000 Jews in the UK. Certainly not everybody voted for it. I mean, yeah, David and I did. But
yeah, and we now know that you don't have space laser dolphins.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but
you're saying Spanish people are definitely voting for Israel?
Well, it happened in Ireland. There's a tiny Jewish community in Ireland, so it was a decent song. I don't know if it was my favourite.
The song's irrelevant, surely. It's the Eurovision Song Contest. Let's not get hung up on the music, guys.
But what do you think about it? I mean, for me, that's why I said to David, I know it seems annoying. Oh, God, a Jewish person going on about anti-Semitism again, but they have really come out. When they come out with these ridiculous conspiracy theories that, oh, Israel tech must have done something, it's got to be from some nefarious reason, and it can't just be because people liked the song.
If I had a magic space laser dolphin, the last thing I would bother to do is win the Eurovision Song Contest.
No, I would use it to shave my legs. That's what they were invented for. But I do think that there is an issue here with these countries like Spain and Belgium, and then also, I don't know if you saw, but the winner from Austria came out and said, I don't think Israel should be in next year's competition. And
did they say, what is it because of what we're thinking, not because of it's called the Eurovision? Like Australia should.
Yeah, but that's because if you're part of the European Broadcasting Company, then you can fit it. That's
Stop calling it Eurovision. Actually, don't use the word vision. It's a song contest. The whole thing's just
call it Space Dolphins.
Just call it Sing Song Along. I don't know what.
Okay, Sing Song Along. Fair enough. Okay, fine.
That's all.
Fair enough.
Song along.
Our next question is from Nick.
Hi, panel. Nice and simple. Will comedy ever be funny ever again? Whether
Nick,
it be shows...
we're in front of you!
It's rude.
Well, whether it be shows or comedians themselves. They've all been cancelled. The woke culture seems to cancel everyone wherever they can. What's the hope?
Indeed.
Where's it all lie?
This is based because Tom Segura's hit Netflix show Bad Thoughts is an assault on decency and won't be to everyone's taste, but it may be the future of comedy. There was a review that came out today which sort of said how things are turning. Do you feel like the wheel is turning? Are you a big fan of stand-up? Please come to my show.
I'm a fan of most comedy, to be honest, but I just feel that there's so many comedians or shows that get cancelled. Even worse, still sacked. And it's only a matter of time before the woke culture finally get rid of LOLO, for argument's sake, which is one of our classics.
That's already ended. Sorry to spoil it for you.
I mean, we don't want to talk particularly about comedy shows getting cancelled.
No, I'm sure that would never happen.
But what do you think? Do you feel like the wheel's turning out there as a stand-up when you're out on stage and what audiences are responding to or not?
In part. I mean, look, stand-up's hopefully a bit different because there's buy-in, isn't there? A person has to go to a place where there's a comedian. Whereas if you're broadcasting, then I think you do have to be slightly more careful not to offend because you're going into their homes. If you're on radio or TV, you should be held to a different standard. But if someone knows, when we always talk about the Ricky Gervais stories or the all the other comedians saying stuff that's a bit offensive, the Jimmy Carr stuff, you know what you're in for. So you shouldn't really complain about it. Jokes always look worse when they're printed the next day in the Daily Mail. Just unless you're actually in the gig, you really shouldn't have a say in it.
But talking about broadcast TV, it feels like, and this is what the article is essentially saying, is that it's Netflix that's commissioning, it's Netflix that is allowing people like Ricky Gervais and Dave Chappelle and Louis C.K. to have a voice, whereas the BBC seems to have failed in its job. When was the last great BBC sitcom? That's what we look to. That's the great unifier.
Someone's whispering Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Mrs. Brown's Boys.
I think you've forgotten about Low Low. Don't ruin the ending. I'm not.
It's absolutely fine. This is Free Speech Nation. Now get out of here!
I read this article in the week, and I haven't seen the show. I've watched the trailer, but what does that tell you? And somebody was saying in it that it already feels a bit dated because there are debates in the show about whether or not you can use words that were already kind of over, which I thought was interesting. So some people really buy into this idea that woke's on the way out.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, it feels like the wheel's turned. It could be we're in a bubble here, but it feels like that things have changed on the ground.
Yeah.
But, of course, it takes time for that to permeate up to the gatekeepers.
Yeah, it's less of a wheel turning, more of a pendulum swinging, you imagine, so it'll maybe overcorrect and then at some point... Because there's always a flow. Comedy, even in the 80s, had this kind of move away from what the Bernard Mannings did into the Ben Eltons, and there's a push back. So I think there's always going to be that path through comedy. And it's also true to remember that everyone will always think the comedy they watched when they were 20 was funnier. It's just a fact. You enjoy comedy more during that era. So we all hit the age of going, it's not what it was, it's just what you liked. It's the reason you still wear the same fashion you did when you were 20. It's just...
Fine, fair enough. Yes, that is exactly how Steve dressed when he was 20. So, next on Free Speech Nation, a protester arrested over a placard mocking a Hezbollah leader. That's a terrorist organisation. Now, police are under scrutiny for their handling of the case. Is this so-called two-tier policing creating two-tier terrorism? See you in a couple of minutes.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Are these two things linked? Is an excess of belly fat perhaps hindering our children's education?
Good morning. So you're quite right. It's not the actual belly fat that is causing the brain problem. It's more that what causes the belly fat to exist is also causing issues in the brain, essentially. So the belly fat is almost a side effect, and so is the reduced learning, the memory, the mood issues that we're seeing in the brain. So it's very important to understand that those two things are correlated, and actually the problems that go behind it are what we need to target. So it's not just about, we're not just trying to body shame young people, we're actually trying to look at what are the cofactors, essentially. So that could be sleep, lack of exercise, overuse of technology, loneliness, would you believe it? And, of course, diet.
The headline essentially has run away with itself. It's conflating the two and making it sound like belly fat is an issue for our children's education, when in reality, it's a matter of actually we need to be encouraging healthier habits, a better diet, more sleep, as you mentioned, loneliness, for example. Is it healthy, though, for these headlines to suggest, like you said, potential for body shaming, potential for, you know, parents getting the wrong impression? Is that what the real issue here is?
I mean, everything has a positive and a negative side. If any parent looks at this and thinks, oh my gosh, I'm seeing my child is getting a little bit podgier around the middle, I need to do something, and kicks them into action. And same with children, you know, it's not a bad idea to inform them and educate them about diet and exercise, and it's good to know about these things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A Telegraph investigation has revealed that a Jewish protester was arrested by the Metropolitan Police after he briefly held a placard satirising a Hezbollah terrorist leader. The British man was detained and charged last September over a cartoon that showed terror chief Hassan Nasrallah with a pager and the words beep, beep, beep in reference to the Israeli explosives attack last September that killed 42 people, mostly Hezbollah terrorists. During questioning, police repeatedly asked the man if he believed the image would offend clearly pro-Hezbollah and anti-Israel activists. I am now joined by specialist criminal solicitor advocate at Wolf Law LLP, Carl Wolf. Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Carl, I read about this story yesterday, and we've covered many instances along this line. This might be the most mental of all of them, really, in terms of offending someone because, you know, they are a fan of a terrorist organisation.
I mean, it was literally like being in the Twilight Zone. I mean, I've represented a lot of these protesters that often get arrested in situations where people on the pro-Palestinian side, and I make no bones about it, if people want to protest about the war in Gaza, they can. But those protests that happen week in and week out are filled with anti-Semitic tropes, and the police, by and large, do nothing. That's the experience that my clients and the people in the community have had. And on this particular occasion, this gentleman was handed a sign by somebody else. He held the sign for, I think it was 90 seconds as people were leaving the protest. Nobody said anything to him. Nobody spoke to him from the police. No protester spoke to him. And he went on his way. And the following week, he turned up to another protest, and his name and his photograph had been circulated, and he was arrested. He had no idea, no warning. He was held for hours. His house was searched. A number of police officers turned up, went through his wife's underwear drawer and looking, I think, for the poster. And then eventually they decided to interview him. I think the interview was at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we had this whole bizarre list of questions. And what tends to happen is that the officers who arrest on the street are not the interviewing officers, but they must have been aware that this interview was going to take place. They were out looking for him. When I spoke to the police, and I spoke to a fairly senior police officer before the interview, who told me, we'll be ready to interview at about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because we're preparing the interview questions. And they prepare the questions, they prepare the overall framework, and we did what's called a prepared statement. So we put forward the client's version of events, an explanation as to what the sign was. We explained that it was, you know, it was satire, political satire, and why we had it, how long we'd had it for. He was a man of good character. That means he'd never been in trouble before, never been arrested, never been in a police station. Of course, you have to understand that he's then handcuffed in front of his peers. He's held in a police van. He's taken to a police station, which at the best of times is not very nice, in the middle of the night with other protesters there. It's a particularly horrible place to be. And you just wait. You wait for hours until you can speak to a solicitor. And then all of a sudden, the officer started asking these questions. And when she turned around and suggested, you know, was he concerned that he might be upsetting people at the protest? And I said, well, who? And that's when we had this bizarre situation. Well, people who support Hezbollah. And I said, are you actually suggesting that that's, you know, what was going on? And she said, yeah. She said, effectively, she knew that Hezbollah was a proscribed organisation, but she actually wanted to know if he had even considered that. And when you consider that at the same protest, and again, if you've read the Daily Telegraph yesterday, you'll see they reported on it as well. At the same protest, they had somebody who was shouting, I agree with October the 7th, effectively. I love organisations whose name begins with H. And when that was pointed out to fairly senior police officer on the ground by legal observers, one of whom was quite an eminent KC, the officer said, well, I didn't hear anything, and, you know, a lot of this is petty, it's all tit for tat. And on one hand, we find that the police are prepared to take unsubstantiated evidence from one side. Quite often the pro-Palestinian side is our experience. But then they will not do anything when people on the pro-Zionist side make allegations. It is changing, and certainly when we're in discussions with the more senior officers, they seem to understand, but the officers on the street, either they're not properly briefed or they don't know what's going on, they don't really understand, they're just there to keep the peace. If they're told go and arrest somebody, that's what they do. And they're not prepared for these types of protests and the nuances of this particular type of argument.
Well, it seems like the police, the person on the average policeman, is sort of making as a sort of equivalence between the two groups, in that they're sort of going that, oh, well, that group there is saying, in this case, you know, yes, I support Hamas, essentially, and these people are saying, oh, it's Hezbollah are evil. And they're going, well, it's just, you know, we all allowed an opinion. Of course we are, but arresting one, this is why people, of course, are saying that the claims of the two-tier policing is one is ignored or let off, or, you know, calling for jihad is calling for spiritual awareness, or just so it's easier for the police to kind of put blinkers on when it comes to that. But, oh, we've got a bunch of people over here who, in my experience of being at these protests or counter-protests, are law-abiding, just out there to state their case that they think that Jews should be allowed to have their own state.
I mean, not all protests are the same, but certainly when you go along to the pro-Palestinian, the pro-Zionist ones, you tend to see the pro-Zionist ones, there's music being played, it's sort of uplifting, the message is free the hostages, and from the other side, it's, you know, it's never, we don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, we don't agree with his politics, or
free
we don't
the hostages and also let's
correct.
have peace.
There's never, exactly. It's always from the river to the sea, which, you know, the community understands is a request to wipe out Jews from Israel, and that's why that's become, you know, a particular chant that is upsetting. But the police, you know, have done nothing about that. When they call for, they say that we don't want a two-state solution, we want global intifada, global resistance. The message that comes across from the other side is always violent and aggressive and angry. And our experience may be that, you know, we don't really understand it, but our experience is the police don't want to deal with the larger, more aggressive groups. And what will happen is they'll deal with the small groups. If somebody is upsetting the larger group, they will take away the smaller person. In Brighton this weekend, there was a demonstration. The police tried to move somebody on for breach of the peace from the pro-Palestinian side. As soon as they made an arrest, they're surrounded. There's video footage online of police officers being assaulted, people trying to stop, the police getting in, taking them into the car. So it is one of those things that we do feel that certainly on the ground, whether or not it's different high up, certainly on the ground there appears to be a completely different level of dealing with the Jewish side and the pro-Israel side than there does seem to be the pro-Palestinian side.
Very quickly before we go, what has been the fate? What's happened with this case?
So with this case, obviously, he was charged. He wasn't charged immediately. He was on bail for quite some time, and we had representations made. He used another solicitor to make some representations and a barrister. It lasted until a week before trial. It's only in the last recent. He's had it hanging over his head. He's had very strict bail conditions, and really only after some really heavy representations on his behalf did the CPS decide to drop it. And all they've said is, we don't think there's a realistic prospect of conviction. We knew that right from the outset. I mean, that's what was in the police station.
The decision-making through the entire process, for me, needs to be investigated, how it would possibly get that far, but even back to the arrest. And I just want to say something. I was at the vigil this week for the murdered couple in Washington, and the police were there to protect. The chief rabbi was there, and the police did a fantastic job, and we were very grateful there. It was sad that, of course, that the police had to be there to protect us as we lit candles and made prayers. But the police also can do a fantastic job. But this, I think, is an insane overreach. Carl, thank you so much for coming in. I know you've come for a wedding. You're going to go back to the wedding. Carl, I will hopefully never call you at 2 in the morning. That's the
But please do if you need to.
I will. Thank you so much. Carl Wall. A Metropolitan Police spokesperson has said, we take support for prescribed organisations very seriously. Since October 2023, we've made 28 arrests under the Terrorism Act for offences at protests, including wearing clothing or displaying symbols that indicated support for such groups, including Hezbollah. This is in addition to the hundreds of arrests made for other offences. Next on Free Speech Nation, a student protest for sex-based rights ends in chaos. GB News contributor Connie Shaw says they wanted open debate, but were met with a response about as friendly as you'd expect. What happened to free speech on campuses? See you in 2 minutes.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Looking further afield, there's plenty of sunshine on offer, and it's going to be feeling warm too across Europe with a few showers around. Now, it is going to be breezy across Madeira and the Canary Islands and running down the coast of Portugal, but otherwise plenty of fine and settled and warm weather around. There'll be a few showers, especially out towards the east, but otherwise temperatures ranging to the mid to high 20s, and that's similar throughout much of the week. Plenty of sunshine on offer, highs of 27.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we'll see rather unsettled weather across the UK. All of us seeing some outbreaks of rain at times, quite blustery winds at times too. Low pressure sitting towards the north and northeast of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery winds. So all our weather moving in from the west at the moment. And as we head into the evening through the overnight period, certainly see quite a few showers moving in from the west across northern and western parts of Scotland into Northern Ireland and the northwest of England. The best of the clear spells tonight towards the south and east of the UK, and it's across the south where we see temperatures holding up fairly well, generally in the high single figures, whereas towards the north of the UK, certainly in rural spots, dipping low enough in rural areas for a touch of frost by Monday morning. As for Monday morning, a bank holiday, of course, there'll be plenty of fine weather towards the south and east of the UK to start with, whereas towards the north, quite a few showers coming in across the north and west of Scotland. So at this stage of the day, it's the northeast of Scotland seeing the best of the bright weather. For Northern Ireland, a bit of an east-west split first thing. Showers out towards the west, some sunshine towards the east. A few showers out across northern and western parts of England and into parts of Wales too. So it's towards the southeast, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll see the best of the early sunshine. As we go through the day, showers will start to break out more widely from the west. I think the south and east generally seeing the fewest in the way of showers, whereas out towards the west, those showers will tend to merge especially as we go into the afternoon to give some more persistent outbreaks of rain. Quite blustery winds once again, still a chance of local gales up towards the far north of the UK, and temperatures a little bit on the cool side, certainly towards the north and west, the low to mid-teens at best, perhaps peaking at 17 or 18 Celsius down towards the southeast. 18 is 64 in Fahrenheit. As we go into Tuesday, it's a quieter start to the day, plenty of sunshine, just 1 or 2 showers around, but notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the west and southwest as we go through the day, some of that turning quite heavy as we head into the afternoon, particularly out towards the west and southwest. It stays unsettled for the rest of the week, further rain to come at times. Where the sun comes through though, temperatures not doing too badly, peaking in the high teens to low 20s Celsius.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. GB News contributor and university student Connie Shaw demonstrated on campus this week in support of the sex-based rights of women, lesbians and gay people with fellow student Maeve Halligan. They said they aim to incite open discussion and debate from passers-by, students, faculty members, or the general public. Instead, they were shouted at, sworn at and their signs destroyed. Students and gender-critical campaigners Connie Shaw and Maeve Halligan join me right now. Hello, welcome. Here they are. So, anybody on social media follows you guys. We could see the setting up. We could see what you were going to do. And then, unfortunately, we saw the inevitable backlash. So if you don't mind, Connie, just explaining what you were doing, why you were doing it.
Well, first of all, Josh, I'd quite like to clarify it was not a demonstration. We simply wanted, as we said, to incite open discussion and debates because both mine and Maeve's experiences at university have been one of general silencing around this issue. As you know, I was removed from my committee position at Leeds Student Radio for simply voicing these views, not even trying to argue with anyone, just voicing my opinion on my own personal podcast. And so
that's you there. So you had some signs set up, and you were sitting behind saying, "This is what we believe. Deal with it." Or
yeah, and we had lots of the signs had a lot of text, so people had to come on their own admission to come and read what our sign said. And through reading the signs, that's how we started to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But sooner rather than later, some people were not very happy, and yeah.
So, Maeve, have you done this kind of thing before?
To an extent. I think what's really difficult about universities, and I think the reason that Connie and I felt, I suppose, moved to do what we were going to do wasn't due to any level of sort of desperation, and we were definitely not trying to be in any sense inflammatory, definitely not aggressive. If anything, we thought quite hard about, I suppose, the optics of the situation, and that we wanted it to be exactly what it was, two women sitting down at a bench on a university campus, trying to incite discussion. And the reason that we basically made it public-facing, it was sort of a last-ditch attempt at trying to, again, not force, but incite these debates and discussions that it's proved impossible to have, ironically enough, within a more formalised university scenario, you know, your seminar, your lecture. And also, sadly, even between individuals, it's definitely the case that young people, there's a lot of quite willful disengagement, especially surrounding this issue, but more generally politically, because so many things are so polarised and so fraught. So what we basically wanted to do was create arguably quite a relaxed environment where people could absolutely, as Connie says, of their own volition, come over, speak with us, potentially debate us, voice any level of view, however emotionally charged that might have been, but ultimately disagree civilly and respectfully, because that's something that is lacking in universities in the UK.
Well, let's see if you were successful.
Yeah. I'm not a woman, but, you know, I go and get my hysterectomy. I've got breast cancer at the same time. Oh, my gosh! Yeah, tear it down. There we go. Would you like to continue having a debate about, like...
So, Connie, talk me through that clip. Also, we have radio listeners. What happened then?
So we were probably about 2 or 3 hours in when two students decided to come up behind us brandishing scissors and cut our sign down and steal the other signs. So we never got those back. So
and the sign said just adult, human, female? Is that
yeah, so it said adult, human, female, and then various different signs saying, stating facts, statistics, posing questions to readers. And it's very symbolic of the attitude of students that some students think that the best way to deal with someone that they disagree with is to prevent them from saying what they disagree with in the first place. Yeah. And as soon as they took the signs down, as you could see in the photos, we had crowds of people coming to listen or to listen to the conversations that were going on. But as soon as the signs were taken down and stolen, we never got them back, people didn't come up to us anymore because they couldn't see that we were trying to incite a discussion. Instead, actually, a member of staff of the university went into the student union, printed off a load of trans flags, and after ours had been taken down, the member of staff put them on the bench in replacement and pressed them into the hands of people standing around, assuming that they would disagree with us. And the member of staff invited people, she said, come over and tell them why transphobia is bad. You know, and we weren't doing anything like that. We were just sat there waiting for people to come to us. But it was really quite shocking to see not just that individual member of staff, but multiple members of staff helping students counter-protest our very civilised. And, you know, like Maeve was saying, we were putting ourselves on the line, sat down on a bench. So everyone who was speaking to us was standing up. So there's almost that, you know, difference of levels. And we were... For 6 hours we were sat there, not just trying to debate, but also being insulted. A different member of staff swore at me. But when she asked me, are you Connie Shaw? And I said yes. And she walked off, she said, that's enough, and swore at me and insulted me. Wow. So it wasn't just students, it was, people who work at the university.
I mean, Maeve, were you expecting this kind of reaction?
I think to an extent, yes. Just for clarity's sake, Connie and I attend different universities, but I think across the board there is this general theme of the best case scenario is that people kind of quash the discussion before it gets going, and the worst case scenario is what Connie's describing and what we both faced, which was absolute, I mean, ad hominems. Kind of, I was told to go back to a church. I was told I was backwards, bigoted. Connie fielded a lot of the same. We were definitely sitting there trying. We knew what our intention was. We knew that a big part of why we presented what we were trying to do in that way was, again, not to be inflammatory, was to try and incite discussion. And every single time somebody came over, our first kind of port of call, our first pinpoint in the discussion was, what is it that you think about what we're doing here? How do you feel, especially in the wake of the recent Supreme Court ruling here in the UK? It was really important to us that we heard people's opinions before in any way positing our own, because I don't know, I think it's important, especially if you have quite a strong opinion on any political, within any political sphere at the moment, that makes it more important than ever that you do engage with the other side. And again, as I was saying earlier, that's why it's so frustrating that a rift is very forcibly driven between the two sides of this really polarised debate when it comes to gender ideology. So yes, in answer to your question, I did expect this kind of backlash, but that's not to say that I condone it. I think it's really disappointing. Connie and I tried to sort of allow for that, and I remember we were sort of almost mentally preparing ourselves beforehand because we knew that we'd be directly insulted as ourselves as well as the view holders that we are. So it was frustrating, disappointing, but at the same time, and it is what we said on social media afterwards, we were pleased with what we had done, not because we have some kind of gleeful satisfaction with upsetting people. Sure, that is, at the end of the day, potentially a consequence of this kind of view. But we were pleased with the fact that, for all intents and purposes, we have represented the fact that young people are willing to rebel against this ideology that is drip-fed or often really forcibly as a blunt instrument promoted in higher education institutions.
Well, this is it. You guys are rebelling against it, but it seemed certainly those people there cheering on the verbal abuse, but also property stolen.
Yes. I mean, it's really important to say as well, we actually had many very, very good conversations, and it was only a select few who I think were ruining it for everyone.
But that's always the way, though, isn't it?
Yes. We actually had a lot of people come up to us, come up close to us and say, this is really brave, which I don't like being called brave because it shouldn't be brave to do this.
It's very brave.
But, you know, saying, you know, thank you so much for doing this, because I mean, we had one person say, I've never met anyone who thinks this, and this is what I think as well, so thank you for doing it. And some students have said, oh, well, if there were people who agreed with them, they weren't being very outspoken. It's like,
does it not occur to you why that's the case? Because look at the way that students get treated when they have this opinion. You know, and they seem to think, like you were saying, Maeve, yes, they might feel upset, but lots of students don't understand that their feeling of being upset or being unsettled, which is how some of the views have been, that we espouse, has been described as being unsettling. There was one point where we were being stared at by, or not stared at, but had direct, like being looked in the face, and a male student said to us, "I like being a girl with a penis." And that was unsettling. But we understand that that student's right to say that does not trump us feeling unsettled by him saying it.
No.
But for other the same is not reciprocated on the other side.
No, well, that's exactly it, isn't it? Of course, Stonewall famously, their slogan was #NoDebate. And unfortunately, it seems then that because of that, they have a whole generation of people who are unwilling to debate. And of course, when you're unwilling to debate, and I think this is a point that you were sort of making, was that if you can't have your opinions challenged and be able to defend your opinions, then they're that much more delicate.
Absolutely. I think that the nature of this debate, and I think why it's actually so singular amongst all the other kind of, let's say, political issues that are discussed on campuses especially, obviously there are some that sort of fall a bit more by the wayside for a student demographic, but this one I think is so singular because it always, like, it refers so much to the individual. A lot of what Connie and I guess more statements, some which I do think were made in good faith, were people basically trying to tell us something that I believe that I know, and I think Connie knows as well, which is, yes, I understand that a person's identity, their sexuality, like taboo, those things are individual and they are difficult necessarily to explain. But I also think that that's kind of made discussion of the fact that having an identity of a certain kind in the modern day actively really does encroach on the rights of women, of gay people and of lesbian people. The fact that it always comes back to the individual means that debate is instantly quashed because people can so quickly claim offence and they can claim a kind of direct attack on who they are.
Well, it feels like an attack because and certainly when you're so not used to it, that you're so sort of naked before the being challenged. Very quickly before the break, are you going to be doing this again?
You have to wait and see.
Oh, OK then. Well, thank you very much to the very brave gender-critical campaigners Cunning Shaw and Maeve Halligan. Next on Free Speech Nation, Donald Trump sends US officials to meet British pro-life activists over fears their free speech is under threat. Is Donald Trump on a transatlantic crusade to save our freedom? See you in 2 minutes.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It is cruel because I think children are only your children for 16 years, 18 years, right? And then they go and they have to do all this stuff for themselves. I think while they're young, their main priorities should be their education, coming in, doing their homework, getting to bed, getting enough sleep. My children, for example, are 11 and 16, so one's doing his GCSEs, the other still randomly has a ton of homework, even at 11. By the time they've come in and done their homework, they're exhausted and they go to bed. I just don't think it is my job as a parent to tell them to then go and mop the floor or hoover their bedrooms. Their main focus is their education at this age.
Yeah. You made my blood run cold there talking about homework, because I'm not a believer in homework. I think school is where you do work and then you come home, and home is where you can do anything else that you want to do, but I just think it's just all too much.
I think this is a tricky one because we're not talking about Victorian Britain or sending children up chimneys. We're talking making your bed, tidying your room. I think it's a great help for people to do chores around the house. There's been several studies where they've seen that it's had beneficial well-being for children. And I think it's just about learning about time management, confidence, resilience. These are just basic life skills. So many people these days, teenagers, grow up and they don't have them, and then they're going off to university or whatever. I saw a really funny video actually of a mum who couldn't get her child to clean up, so she got black rice, sprinkled it around the room and told him it was mouse droppings. Now, I don't know if we need to go that far, but I do think it's good for children as a whole.
GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A Telegraph investigation has revealed that Donald Trump sent US officials to meet British pro-life activists over concerns their freedom of speech has been threatened. A 5-person team from the US State Department met and interviewed 5 activists who had been arrested for silently protesting outside abortion clinics to feed back to the White House. Now, just moments ago, it's been revealed that the White House is now monitoring the case of Lucy Conley in an escalation of free speech tensions with Sir Keir Starmer. This is the latest sign that the Trump administration is willing to call out what they see as an erosion of free speech in the UK. I am joined now by the communications officer at ADF International, Paul Sapper. Welcome to the show, Paul. So, Paul, what happened? Did the White House get in touch with your organisation?
Yes, yeah. So I think what's clear from the news you've just told that is breaking is that, and what we've seen previously, for example, in J.D. Vance's speech in Munich, is that this administration is very concerned about freedom of speech, the state of free speech in Europe and the UK. They know that we work, our organisation Alliance Defending Freedom, work on free speech cases, supporting victims of censorship here in the UK. So they wanted to learn more about the crisis of censorship in this country. And so we were very happy to facilitate some meetings with some of our clients who are victims of buffer zone censorship. These are people who have been criminalised for silently praying or offering consensual conversation outside abortion centres. And this was a time for them really just to tell their stories about how they have been targeted.
Do you think that there might be better examples to have break? Because it feels to me like there's an ideological position there about abortion as opposed to free speech issues. I know some people would say it's a free speech issue, some people say it's a law issue, whereas there are other examples out there that surely would have been more relevant, maybe.
I understand the point that you're making there. I think I would probably push back and say I don't think there is a clearer example of the censorship crisis in this country than those cases, because what we have there is not only speech being criminalised, but thoughts in the case of silent prayer, what's going on inside someone's head. Adam Smith-Connor, who's one of our clients who was at that meeting, was convicted for silently praying outside an abortion centre. He didn't say anything, he didn't speak to anyone about his views there. He was just silently praying is what he was criminalised for. And so he was given a suspended sentence and made to pay £9,000 in prosecution costs for his silent thoughts. In the case of Livia Tasiki-Bolt, which the State Department has previously said it was concerned over her case and the verdict where she was found guilty, she was merely offering consensual conversation. She was not expressing her views as it relates to abortion.
But do you understand why the law is as it is in terms of some people feel that to be within a certain buffer zone of abortion centres is to even the presence of someone might be intimidating or off-putting for them? I mean, what I'm saying is, I guess, do you think that there is an example where it's not actually a free speech issue and it is an intimidation? If they'd been there with a sign, for example, would you have been as concerned?
I think something that's really important to state is that we're all against harassment. That's very clearly against the law. And in any case where there is harassment, that should not be allowed and it shouldn't be happening. Our clients are totally different from that. They are doing entirely peaceful activities. I think we're setting a very, very dangerous precedent where we're saying that if someone has certain views that we just so happen to disagree with, even if they're not expressing those views, but just because of the person they are, and essentially the contents of their mind, they're not allowed to be in a certain space. Today, it's people who are pro-life or Christian. tomorrow, what could it be? It sets a really, really dangerous precedent. The slippery slope there could clearly happen.
Well, let's look at the case of Lucy Connolly, for example, which is it seems much more clear-cut. Of course, what she said was wrong. She admits that. She said sorry. She deleted it hours afterwards. The question becomes, of course, whether she should be in jail for sentenced for 31 months for it. And of course, when you see people committing, when I say actual crimes, I mean, yes, she technically committed a crime, but crimes of real violence or sexual violence towards people getting less time, even paedophiles, that the system is wrong somewhere.
I totally agree with you. I think there are several things about her case that are deeply concerning. She's a first-time offender. It was an incredibly emotionally charged moment. She deleted the tweet because she regretted it, and yet she's being treated extremely harshly. And I think you're totally right when you're talking about there are other cases where people have committed violent crimes where they don't seem to be treated as harshly as her. And I think this shows really the idea that we have a two-tier system in this country is not an exaggeration. I think you see it with our clients when it comes to Christian expression, and I think you are certainly seeing it in cases like hers as well.
OK, well, look, finally, let's talk about Donald Trump and the White House. Now, I'm an advocate for free speech. It's something I feel passionate about. I also it puts my back up because it's like, get away, Donald Trump. What are you doing coming over here? It's nice. It's a good thing to have these sort of pointed out. But the idea that America is sending over people and making threats to whether you agree with them or not, a political leader, something about that unnerves me. I don't like it, frankly.
I totally understand what you're saying there, Josh. I wish that our leaders in this country cared about free speech here as much as him. And I think we should see it as the actions of a concerned friend and ally who, if you love someone, if you love a friend, you tell them the truth, even if it's hard to hear. And I think that's how we should see this. They're a concerned friend who see us as partners of Western civilization. Their civilization came from this place, and they're deeply alarmed at how free speech is deteriorating really rapidly in this country.
OK, well, fair enough. As a friend, I'd just like to say to him, use less bronzer. OK, that was Paul Sapper from ADF International. Thank you very much for joining us. Also, thank you for joining us for Free Speech Nation. Thank you to my panel, Steve Van Allen and Cresta Wetton, and to all of my brilliant guests this evening. And if you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to gbnews.com/tickets. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That's next. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye. Have a good day, you guys.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we'll see rather unsettled weather across the UK, all of us seeing some outbreaks of rain at times, quite blustery winds at times too. Low pressure sitting towards the north and northeast of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery winds. So all our weather moving in from the west at the moment. And as we head into the evening and through the overnight period, certainly see quite a few showers moving in from the west across northern and western parts of Scotland into Northern Ireland and the northwest of England. The best of the clear spells tonight towards the south and east of the UK, and it's across the south where we see temperatures holding up fairly well, generally in the high single figures, whereas towards the north of the UK, certainly in rural spots, dipping low enough in rural areas for a touch of frost by Monday morning. As for Monday morning, a bank holiday, of course, there'll be plenty of fine weather towards the south and east of the UK to start with, whereas towards the north, quite a few showers coming in across the north and west of Scotland. So at this stage of the day, it's the northeast of Scotland seeing the best of the bright weather. For Northern Ireland, a bit of an east-west split first thing, showers out towards the west, some sunshine towards the east. A few showers out across northern and western parts of England and into parts of Wales too. So it's towards the southeast, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll see the best of the early sunshine. As we go through the day, showers will start to break out more widely from the west. I think the south and east generally seeing the fewest in the way of showers, whereas out towards the west those showers will tend to merge, especially as we go into the afternoon to give some more persistent outbreaks of rain. Quite blustery winds once again, still a chance of local gales up towards the far north of the UK, and temperatures a little bit on the cool side, certainly towards the north and west, the low to mid-teens at best, perhaps peaking at 17 or 18 Celsius down towards the southeast, 18 is 64 in Fahrenheit. As we go into Tuesday, it's a quieter start to the day, plenty of sunshine, just one or two showers around, but notice further outbreaks of rain moving in from the west and southwest as we go through the day, some of that turning quite heavy as we head into the afternoon, particularly out towards the west and southwest. It stays unsettled for the rest of the week, further rain to come at times. Where the sun comes through though, temperatures not doing too badly, peaking in the high teens to low 20s Celsius.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Someone is going to win the biggest prize package to date, and that someone could be you. Driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It has plenty of room for your family of 4. Comes complete with kitchen, bathroom, and all the space you'll need for life on the road. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where